Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Reclaiming America.
We always got me laughing when we start.
Yeah,
Go.
we usually do.
All right.
We're trying to figure out where we are and what we're up to. I'm Bill Moore.
I'm Dan Roman.
And we're Reclaiming America. Common sense solutions to evidently not so common problems that everybody's got.
Well, we got to talk some common sense about all the crap that's going on right now.
Yeah, well, this show could go on for about 2 days covering what's just happened.
Yeah, I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow winning her case.
Oh, yeah, that was probably the most important thing out there. I agree. Yeah.
The funny thing was, I opened up my browser this morning because I look at the news. That was the lead story, believe it or not.
That does not surprise me.
I was like, you got to be kidding me, right?
Well, Greta Thunberg, who's had to come out now and revise her 2017 statement that the world was going to burn in 2023.
We talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, but you know.
But anyway.
I keep looking out my window in the morning. I don't see any fires.
So did you hear about this little story that kind of popped up? I don't know if you've heard about it. Apparently there was this guy, he used to be president. His name's escaping me. Donald.
Melania's husband?
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, I think I remember him now.
Anyway,
yeah.
Apparently he's in a little trouble with the law.
That doesn't necessarily surprise me.
So, if you don't know, if you've lived under a rock for the last...
Either that or you've been in surgery for the last 24 hours.
In a coma.
And you're about ready to come out now. You're going to find out.
Even if you've been in any of those, you still probably know. But former president, and probably future president after this, Donald Trump...
They're pretty well guaranteeing his running.
Was indicted.
Will be indicted.
Or will be indicted, correct. I should thank you for that correction. For allegedly, we have to make sure we put that in there, committing criminal acts.
30 of them.
30 of them.
Right.
They didn't just indict him on one thing, they went for 30.
Well, because they're hoping that it's like throwing a bunch of crap at a wall, hoping something sticks.
Throwing a bunch of shit at the wall. And
I said crap, I wasn't going to use shit.
But anyway, long story short, he got or will be indicted. I believe it's Tuesday.
Tuesday at 2:15, he's going to be.
Right.
He's going to come into New York, and the last word is that the Secret Service has basically told New York that he will not be in cuffs because if they have to escort him out, he has to run. He can't run in cuffs. So that's a non-issue for the Secret Service.
Isn't going to allow anything bad to happen, and
so
they have jurisdiction over everybody, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, in New York especially.
Well, I don't even think the FBI can overrule them. I may be wrong. I
don't know that. It's an interesting question.
I've actually heard something along those lines, but you know how that is. But anyway, yes. So let's talk about that. Yeah,
the man has suddenly got 30 things he's done wrong, and with a DA who has, first of all, swore when he ran that he would get Trump. Mm-hmm. So he's obviously impartial.
But also said previously he was not going to pursue this.
Yeah, and in addition to that, he has also made the statement, and actually he's done that, he's reducing everybody that comes in front of him to misdemeanors from felonies, and he's not prosecuting about half of what he needs to prosecute.
Yeah.
But he's going to try and take this misdemeanor up and make it a felony.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a set?
Why would they do that? I mean, it's not like it could be a political reason, could it?
Oh, I think it's because he's a secret Trump fan. And that's probably what it is. He down deep wants Trump to win, so he's trying to help.
Well, in my opinion, he's pretty much handed Trump the election at this point.
At this point, he's definitely given him the primary.
There's no way the public is going to stand for this. There will be a portion, obviously, that will. But again, as we talk about with this show, we're not talking about the two extremes on either side. It's the middle.
But you know what interests me? I was thinking this morning about what people could do about it. What are the reactions should we have? Do we call our elected officials? They're not in the judicial system.
Right.
That doesn't work anyway. And half of them don't answer the phone when you call. Those would be the Democratic side, by the way. But do we go up and we do rallies? Well, the last time we tried that became January 6th. And they are looking for a reason to crack down on us again.
Right. That will give them the excuse they're looking for.
To come in and arrest a whole bunch of people.
Right.
And Nancy Pelosi put it the best way of anybody today. And I do remember you found that because we were talking about it.
Yeah, we should pull that tweet up. I didn't have it ready. I should have had it ready.
But anyway, her basic line is, he's got the right to prove himself innocent. The last time I checked, you were innocent until proven guilty.
No, Bill. We're no longer the States of America. We're the United Socialist States of America. And in socialist states, you are guilty until proven
Yeah,
innocent.
but I think what she's done to herself in her hatred of Trump, she's shown the left's attitude toward everything.
Of course she did.
That's why everybody in January 6th got thrown in jail. You're in jail till you prove you're innocent.
Right.
You're guilty till you prove you're otherwise.
And that's why I think, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic by saying they handed Trump the election here. That's what's going to be the reason why is the average American is going to look at that and go, well, if they're doing it to him, what's to stop them from doing it to me? And you're right, the January 6th crew, again, a lot of them did commit a crime. I'm not...
Trespassing. We talked about that.
We have. But...
And breaking and entry to some extent.
The Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, there's a whole bunch of them that are not being followed. I know, speedy trial, what are we, 2.5 years afterward? Still sitting there, nothing going on?
Well, the last thing I heard is that the federal prosecutor that was appointed to handle this has decided in 2/3 of the cases he's not going forward. Why? Because in 2/3 of the cases he hasn't got a damn thing to go forward with.
Go by.
Let's put it where it's at.
It's... I will tell you, I think this is the ultimate end of the country. I'm going to go there. Because if they indict him, which is...
It's happening Tuesday.
We know it's going to happen. That ends everything to me.
If they can, what you said earlier, if they can do it to Trump,
Right.
the most powerful non-Democrat in the country,
Well put. Well put.
the rest of us are dog meat.
Yeah. And whether you agree with Trump or not,
It should scare the hell out of you.
it should scare that, and that's the point, right? And that's what of course he's going to show up. He's not, DeSantis said, I'm not going to extradite him. That was never an issue. Trump he's salivating at this chance because he would, to be honest with you, I think he would love to get hauled out in cuffs. Yeah, it's going to give him a photo op for the left, but can you imagine him? They put me in cuffs. You're next, because that's his spiel.
Oh yeah, you'll be out there singing that song.
Oh, they'll be, if every commercial, you'll see the Donald, right? Is that what he goes by?
By the way, and I'm a pro-Trump person, I got to mention that, but they're already out there requesting money to help pay for all this.
Which side is? Both?
Trump.
Trump is.
Trump's side is already out there.
Well, I was going to say fundraising down the road, but yeah.
Down the road was about a half an hour after it was announced.
I mean, him being hauled out in cuffs, which we know is not going to happen, that'd be worth $100 million to his campaign, at least.
Yeah, but if you plan this long term, you're going into an election year in 18 months, we're going to have another election. Mm-hmm. The wheels of justice don't move that fast. Just because you're indicted doesn't mean you're getting a trial in 2 weeks.
You don't think they'll speed this one up?
They can't. You're going to end up with probably something that's going to go into next year's campaign time. And it's going to interfere with his ability to run around and do things.
You've got to... By the way, I agree with you. This is not going to happen quick. It'll happen roughly October of 2023, right? That's when the election...
2024 is the election.
Yeah. But my point being, the election's in November.
Of 2024.
Of 2024. The trial will be somewhere in September of October of 2024.
Probably somewhere on. I agree.
Yeah, somewhere in, because campaign season starts, but essentially it's Labor Day on, roughly. Somewhere between Labor Day and Election Day, the trial will occur.
And probably the verdict the day after Election Day.
Well, here's an interesting point. Where is it being tried?
New York.
You think
unless they get a change of venue?
You think they can't find a jury to find him guilty?
Oh. Look, someone gave some stats the other day why Bragg did this. And, and realistically, if you were in a county that's 50-50, 60-40, you think about what you're doing because you got to get reelected. He's in Manhattan, which is 85 to 90% Democrat.
Yeah, it's 90-10.
So there's no danger there.
None.
And if you watched...
They're cheering.
I was listening to Chris Plant coming over, actually, and he played a tape from Stephen Colbert last night. And he came out,
I didn't hear that
and he came out and he announced, just before I started taping the show, they announced they were going to indict Trump for whatever. There was a standing ovation, if you want, for a good minute and a half.
Of course.
People just were all there screaming and yelling how great it was. But that, again, that's who he attracts.
It's exactly right. That's his audience.
Yes.
And then you look at social media, because I'm more of a social media person, you're seeing the same thing happening. So various Republican politicians have put out their press releases on it, which is, pissing in the wind, basically, because it's a press release. Nobody cares. But what the left has done, and a lot of people may not realize this, I don't even know if you do. So what the left does, let's pick Ted Cruz, just a random person. Ted Cruz will put a post up on, say, Facebook. If you ever go look at it, you'll see their post, and then you go and look in the comments. There'll be hundreds of comments, all negative.
And they're all bots.
They're one person.
Yeah, they're bots.
Yeah, so what happens is, and there's been talk about this, which is unsubstantiated, but come on, that Soros pays people to basically be the bot, right? It's not, when you say bot, a true bot is electronic. There's no human being behind it, so to speak.
True.
There are actually human beings doing this. So what they will do is, let's say I'm that person. And oh, by the way, it was caught a few years back where they had ads on Craigslist for these jobs. So it's not like it's conspiracy theory, people. So they hire me. I open 50 Facebook accounts. Something like this happens. Cruz puts up his post. I sit there and I cut and paste
50 times.
50 times. And they'll change it a little bit. And my theory is, and again, this is theory on my part, is they're actually getting scripts of what to say. Because if you actually jump from, and I've done this, if you jump to different politicians,
Well,
you'll see the same, almost
it has
identical
been proven
verbiage.
that the Democrats put out the talking points every morning, and it goes to all the right
But they
people.
go even further, Bill. It's not just talking points, it's like verbatim.
That's the point.
Yeah.
The talking points, they read the exact same line on every TV
Everywhere.
program on that side. You hear the exact same line coming from 10 different people.
So, this morning I was scanning through some of them. Like our Senator Tillis put out his press release. And within seconds, you can see they were waiting because they know they're going to put a press release out. So these people sit there and they wait, and then they just blast. It's like boom, 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 boom. And they create the illusion that, and this is all, perception becomes reality. There's 500 negative comments, and, little old me, say, goes on there and puts a positive one on. Well, it's 500 to 1 against him. That's how genius they are. And I saw, again, I used Cruz as an example because I did see it on his. Crenshaw's another one I follow. There's a few I follow. And it's consistent. And my point is, I need to see more from the Republican Party at this point. A press release is progress because 3 years ago they wouldn't have even put that out. But they need to, you got to fight fire with fire at this point. That's my opinion.
But again, and we've talked about this before, at some point, do you play the hand you're dealt? I mean, in the military, there's a reality where you play the war you're given,
Yep.
and it was proven go back to the Revolutionary War. The British decided to fight in the middle of the field with their weapons in
Yep.
squares, and we fought from behind trees.
Or use Vietnam. There's another.
Yeah, there's another one. Guerrilla warfare 101.
Right.
But in this particular case, do you need to stope that low?
Yes.
Now, well, that
Yes.
concludes this show, everybody. We
That's
got that
my
solved.
answer. That is my answer. Yes. Go on.
I don't know if that's appropriate. Now, I can see
It's not, but I'm still going to say yes.
the need, I hate to put it this way, to bring in our own people to do something similar to that. Okay, I understand that. But to me, first of all, the only people reading these things,
I'm not talking about social media. I'm talking about
talking about
charging.
social media.
Okay. Well, if you want to stay there, yeah, I still think you still need to do that.
Okay, but the only people reading it are political junkies for the most part. Let's be honest. And
yes and no.
And 99% of them are either pro-right or pro-left, and you're not going to change a damn thing with what's
No,
written
you're
there.
not. But again, it's that perception. It's. I think that's considered fifth generation warfare to use because you're talking about military, right? It's hearts and minds. When an average person goes and looks at that, that's what they're seeing.
In the military, we call it civil affairs. Am I right there, old great leader, boss? See?
She's taking notes. We're in trouble.
But she also said I was right. Did you
Yeah,
notice that?
she's probably a spy for the NSA. I'm kidding. You know it. Oh, look at that look. If
Well,
I'm
we
not
know
on the
who's
show
getting.
next week, my body is somewhere in the alligator fields. It's said with love, Greta. You know that. But to your point, like talking about from the social media perspective. Now, here's the other thing I'm seeing. There is, and this is encouraging. You're seeing a growing number of average people now responding with their own. So they're not responding on Cruz's post. They're putting their own posts up. I have seen over the last really 3-ish years since Trump lost, I'm starting to see it, and it's building momentum. It's changing. People are like, no, this is not right. And it does change public opinion over the long haul. I am encouraged by that. I do it. You know me. I might like to stir the pot here and there.
Like being almost pregnant?
And I like to feed the trolls occasionally, because they think they're getting me, and they got me all riled up and triggered, and I'm laughing at them literally. But I'm starting to see more of that on social media, and the bottom line is, like it or not, that's our public place now. That's our town hall. Whether it's Facebook, pick your one.
And I agree with you. And I will tell you, in some ways, the Republican Party is lagging in social media like you've never seen. I'm being nice. I said lagging. I didn't say the turtle and the hare. I didn't do that one.
I'm thinking they are in the Middle Ages with space travel. And the
You're doing
Democrats
Star
are on the
Wars?
Starship Enterprise, okay?
Yeah, but which one, A, B, C, or D? There's a
Doesn't
difference.
matter at this point. And by the way, that's kudos to the people that created this, because you got to give the Democratic Party credit. They're geniuses at what they're doing.
Well, it all starts with Al Gore's internet.
Evil can be just as smart and intelligent as good. And
Yeah.
they are masters at it. My point being with not just social media, but for lack of a better terms, we need an eye for an eye. And we were kind of talking about this off air. Do I think it's appropriate? No. Do
You
I
think it's necessary?
Absolutely 100%. So, hypothetically speaking, you find some Democrat, prominent one, that, obviously jurisdiction's got to come into play. But they're within a jurisdiction where you can get someone to indict them. It's not about getting them arrested or any of that. It's not about even the public perception. It's to throw a scare back. You do it to us, we're going to do it to you. Think about it as what has MAD done for the last 50 years with nuclear arms? That's, a bad analogy, but it's an analogy.
Yeah, that's a bad analogy we agree on. There's another thing we're both on the same
But
side on.
mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, well, deterrence is the right word.
No, I prefer to act like MAD. MAD just
there was at some point where we could destroy everybody 15 times
15
over
times.
there,
I think we
and
still
they could
can,
do
actually.
35 over
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
But
whatever.
how many times do you have to die?
But, the thing is, we're seeing a change. The Republican Party is starting to speak up more. Press releases, like I said, 4 years ago, they wouldn't have even done that.
Well, I agree in the fact that the parties need to step forward and get into social media. And, as a matter of fact, based on what we're talking about, and I already have a plan going for my meeting next month, where we're going to be talking about the fact that you need to be signed up for all these Our People's websites and their emails,
Oh, yeah.
and respond when someone goes after them. If you agree with them, respond and come back.
Now what you're talking about is what they do. So,
But I'm talking about what we would do to them.
right. But what you're doing is, in fact, putting into place what they've had for 40 years.
Except I'm not talking about one person doing 40 times. I'm talking about 40 people doing one
Even
time.
that, though. So what they'll do, have you ever heard of Reddit? Reddit's another social media. It is a cesspool. All right. But back in the day, when the Tea Party was big.
I was part of the Tea Party.
I thought she was calling me number one.
No, I would think of you as number two. But
But anyway, that's when Reddit really started popping. And what they would put out there is, hey, Jane Doe politician said this. Let's get her. Here's what we're going to do.
And you know what? We'll come back to that in just a few seconds and pick up from there again. But right now, we need to take a break and
Okay.
pay the sponsors we don't have. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Let's keep it
God,
going. I
keep
love
it rolling. No, the other problem we have with this is that we don't have the age group we need that does
that's
all
a good
this.
point. That is a good point.
You know, most of us, and I go back to something I used to teach. You know, it's very easy. It's like going to a new country and moving in. You know, you're an immigrant to a new country, different language, different culture. You've got a whole world to learn. We are immigrants to technology. These kids are native technologists. They grew up with it.
Absolutely.
And there's a tremendous difference.
There is a huge, I mean, I would be considered young, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking.
But your point is 1,000,000% valid. And that's kind of why I've talked about this before, that the party needs to start reaching out to the youngers, however that is. Because...
And one of my favorite lines, because it is the Republican Party cannot exist on old white men. We need diversified
that's true
group.
too. But it's that I'm trying to think of the way I'm going to say it wrong. But basically, when you're in high school and college, you're a Democrat. When you get out of college and get a job and start having to pay taxes, you start changing into a libertarian.
The way they say
and
that
then by
is,
the time you're old, you become a Republican.
the word they put that in a different term for you is in college. If you have a heart, you're a liberal Democrat. By the time you're 40, if you have a brain, you've become a conservative.
It's amazing how it changes for so many. I've seen it with my kids. The older ones, they're like, wait a minute, I got to pay taxes. I got to hire people and they don't show up for work. That's a problem. Stuff like that. I mean, I had this conversation with my daughter not too long ago. She's a millennial and she's waking up to the fact of reality. And she'll probably be farther right than I will ever be by the time she gets to my age.
Makes the John Birch Society look like a leftist
it's
organization.
just like, it's hilarious to see. And I would never have called myself a leftist, but I've kind of gone more conservative as I've gotten older. I'm a libertarian conservative / somewhere in there. I just hate the government, period, being involved in anything.
Well, when you get into those conversations, my favorite argument with people is you start by saying the Constitution is a living document. Oh, does that start a war?
Oh, they don't like that.
That is a war. And the best line with that is you have conservatives saying it's not a living document.
Yeah,
well, guess what? They've changed it 28 or 29 times it's a living document.
And it should be.
And it needs to be. But their definition of a living document is you can twist it and turn it any way you want it as you need to.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not what we're talking about.
Kind of circling this into this whole Trump thing. It's keeping in mind that they're going to get an indictment. They're going to get their dog and pony show out of it. They're already running with it. It will go to trial because Trump wants it to go to trial, right? And give him credit. He's a master at manipulating things too, probably better than anybody. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't say stupid things without having a reason to say it because he knows he's going to get traction on it. There's no such thing as there's bad news when it comes to marketing.
He doesn't just say stupid things, but he sometimes sends a picture of stupid things.
You think
like
he doesn't know he's doing it?
Yeah, he does, for example, when he's standing next to a picture of DeSantis holding a baseball bat.
Well, yeah.
That was not intentional, but it certainly sent a message.
It did, but...
Now, and the other thing no one's thinking about, and you may have this little indictment going on, which we're all pretty sure that somewhere down the road he's going to beat, especially when you consider the fact that the feds on the same charges wouldn't do anything with it.
You think they'll toss the indictment down the road?
No, I think they'll go to trial and it'll be turned over at some level with appeal.
Oh, well, you and I are somewhat in agreement. I think it will go to trial. I think he will be found guilty because they're going to find a place to do it. Then it's going to go to appeal. And then the jury's out of it and any legal scholar
I don't think you're going to
get
get 12 people to agree. I think you have a hung jury.
I'll be interested to see.
Now, what I will tell you what no one's thinking about, though, there are two other cases out there. You have Georgia, who's looking at state charges also, separate from New York, and they're probably a month or 2 or 3 from filing if they're going to do the same thing there. And your third
Not if, when.
and your third point is you have a special prosecutor at the federal level
Yes.
who's processing January 6th. So in theory, you could have
You could
2
have
more
three.
indictments.
I don't think the federal one will go anywhere. I've never have. I think that's dog and pony show again. I think Georgia legitimately will. And there, remember I was saying before, find that person, Stacey Abrams. They've got dirt on her. They could indict her. Now, is she guilty? Who knows? There's your one. Target her. Georgia is Republican governor. I'm sure the AG is.
He is.
File it, indict her. Not because you want her in jail. Eye for an eye. You do it to us, we're going to do it to you. Mad.
Except, again, you don't have the same scenario.
Nope. But it's
Because in New York, Bragg was safe because he's got the numbers to support his
That's-
reelection. In Georgia, you don't have that.
sacrifice them.
It's easy to say when you're not the one being nailed to the tree.
And make me the AG and I'll do it. I mean, seriously, I get your point. I am not disagreeing with anything you're saying. But at some point, you got to say enough's enough. Where is that line? At what point is that line going to be drawn, Bill? Because it hasn't been yet.
There are people I could see being indicted other than Stacey Abrams, and not.
I'm
there.
just using her.
Okay, but I can see Hunter someplace.
I believe it.
And I can also, by the way, we haven't discussed one other possibility for this whole mess. Pardon.
Oh, of course. And I actually.
I don't mean excuse me. I'm talking
No,
about
I know exactly
pardon.
what you're talking because I have that same thought. Explain it to the audience. Or
Pardon
I will.
it. The
Or I
President
will.
Biden could turn around and do what Ford did for Nixon.
Right.
And basically say, I pardon you from everything, and therefore nothing goes
And
further.
who looks like the hero then?
He does.
He does.
But however, I don't see him pulling that off unless he gets quid for quo.
Okay, he's-
and he's going to want the same thing should Trump win
My
for his
pudding
family.
cup that
And
I-
Trump won't give it up.
Yeah, my pudding cup I had for lunch has more brains than Biden at this point, okay? But there are people pulling the strings, and I actually have that same thought. Again, it's marketing.
And I can understand what he's saying. For the good of the country, we need to do this. We need to pardon him regardless of what actually happened. But we're going to pardon
We're
him from
gonna
all
issue a pardon,
offenses.
and that a pardon will be issued.
Except there's one problem with that. And I haven't thought this through yet. Can he pardon a state offense?
I believe he's got ultimate authority.
I don't think so. I think he can handle federal offenses.
President or producer, could you look that up for us?
But I don't think
honestly
he's
don't.
got the ability to pardon a state offense.
I thought he did. I thought he had.
Because don't forget, Nixon was a federal issue. It was an
yeah,
impeachment.
I will be the first to say I'm wrong if I am, but I
and I'll be the
thought-
first to say you're wrong. So we
Well,
agree.
you always are. I thought he did have that.
No, I don't think he has the
But,
power to take over a state. I think that may be a
But
state
then
governor.
again, Hochul could do it.
Oh yeah, I don't see that happening.
Well, think about it. Again, perception's reality, marketing. If they're trying to win an election, Biden's in trouble. Hochul comes out and plays the hero. I'm going to pardon Trump.
Not in a state of the, not
Then
in
Biden runs with it. Like, see,
not in a state where you have to win New York City to win New York State, and she'll never carry New York State again.
She shouldn't have won the last election. She won it by a landslide.
But she did.
By a landslide, she won. She has no fear of losing.
She will if she pardons
I don't-
Trump. She's going to write off New York. It's over.
I disagree 100% with you on that one.
They would vote for Mickey Mouse before they voted for someone that pardoned Trump.
I don't think so. I think New York City, you could run a person who killed puppies and molested children in the middle of the road, and they'll still pull the D lever.
That's probably true. Except,
So she's got
but
nothing
there's
to worry
no.
about.
That's not a personal hatred. Trump has got personal hatred.
I agree.
with him.
I get your
You know,
point.
it's a big difference from theoretically saying these people are child molesters, but if it's my kid being bothered, I have a whole different set with that.
I disagree vehemently with you. I don't think there's anything you could do that would cause them to vote for an R.
I didn't say
New York City.
They'd have to vote. They just don't have to vote.
I still don't think they would.
They don't have to vote for him. They just don't vote for him.
We're going to have to agree to disagree, my friend, because
I will-
having lived in upstate New York,
And having lived in downstate New York,
they are so delusional down there. Sorry, they.
but you know,
That's a
have to
fact.
be convicted under Court of
Okay,
Appeals,
so
not.
So he
can't
doesn't have the
overrule state.
power.
Okay, so okay,
You know, the only thing he can overrule is the special prosecutor for the DOJ.
right. Which I don't think the federal level ever is going to go anywhere.
So, but the states he has no control over.
Yeah, because the federal, then you're going Supreme Court quick. State level, you're going to have to go through the state courts before you can get it to the Supreme Court. See, my thought is this: they want to. This is all marketing. They, in the end, like you said, it's not about convicting Trump. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. He's never. Trump is like my wife asked me this morning. Is he going to end up in jail? And I went, not a chance. There is zero chance.
You know, there is another thought out there which is equally interesting. The Democrats are doing this on purpose to get Trump to run because they think they can beat him in general.
That logic may not be wrong.
You know, because he's such a polarizing person.
Right, because they know they can't beat, say, DeSantis.
Yep.
DeSantis is the one they fear
Absolutely.
because he wins 80%. You know, he
But-
might not get California, New York, and Minnesota. He's going to get
And
the rest
maybe
of the country.
and maybe Illinois.
A couple other ones. But Trump is so polarizing. And again, I don't think Trump should run. I love his policies, but he's just too polarizing.
Except the more you push him. No, I grew up with Trump in New York. I mean, we weren't friends. I'm going to start there. But I watched him in his 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And there's one thing that people who know Trump know one thing about him. You go after him, he's coming at you with everything he's
of
got,
course.
and it doesn't matter what it costs. He's going to win.
And he will burn bridges to do it.
Absolutely, he will. You sue him, he's not going to settle. You're going to be beaten. End discussion.
And he's got the money to do it.
And the lawyers to back him up.
But I just think that your point about this is to get him to run and rile him up. Because look, they know if he's got this base. And it's a pretty good sized base.
And it crosses party lines.
And it does. But they have their base too. So they cancel each other out pretty much. It's the middle. And if because the way they'll make it seem is that when he's burning those bridges, see, he's a bad person. He's not reasonable. Because his ego is massive.
You know, when he started this campaign again, he was doing it from policy and issues and not personal. And then he's now going after the people against him.
Well, look at what he did to DeSantis.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was wrong. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? And they'll use that against him.
Yeah, I think it's just as valid that they may are doing this for no other purpose than to make sure he's on the ballot.
That is a valid point to make. Do I think that's the case? I think that's part of it. I think it's more than just one particular thing. They're trying to manipulate everything. And, you know, you get Trump pissed off, which they have. You get his ego going. He's going to do, like we said, anything to win. And they're looking for that opportunity to take whatever it is and make it an issue. Because then they're deflecting from the fact the economy's trash.
They can't
and all
run
that.
on
They have nothing
their
to run on.
accomplishments.
They have nothing to run on.
Right, so they've got to
So
run
they've got
on
to find that
negativity.
anti thing.
Right.
And that's what I think they're trying to do with this.
I think that's quite possible.
You know, I also think, though, that they've miscalculated. I think, you know, forget the far left, forget the far right. The base is the base. It's not going to change. It's the middle. And I think the middle is going to wake up on this one. I'm seeing it.
I
I'm seeing
think
it
the
online.
middle will lean more Trump than anything because they think he's being picked on and jumped on.
Well, they're seeing it. It goes back to what we said earlier. If they're doing it to him,
They can
we're
come
next.
after me.
And that's where the middle of the country, for lack of a better term, that's what's going to, I think that's a miscalculation that's being made. You know, we've talked in the past about how the Democrats want all this immigration because they think it's going to give them the elections from now on, not realizing that Hispanics are very family-oriented, religious, and all that. They don't really follow.
And they are fastly becoming Republican.
Yeah, that's
at
what's
a fairly
happening.
big number.
It's a miscalculation, and I think it's similar.
And unfortunately, or fortunately for the Republican side, they are alienating the African American group of people
More and
because
more.
they're pushing the Hispanic operation. And who gets hurt more by the Hispanic illegals coming in? It's the black
it's the black
population.
community, yeah.
You know,
It's-
they lose jobs, they lose income coming in.
And I think
they get hurt.
those miscalculations, we're starting to see the cracks with those. And I think this whole thing's going to backfire on them.
I hope. I really hope. But guess what? Time will tell.
That's the thing. It's all speculation at this point, right?
And if you think we're right or wrong,
comment below, and they will.
and you want to agree with Dan, I will support your right to be wrong. I will be there for you. You think I'm right? We agree. So this is not a problem. So if you want to write in and talk to us or give us messages,
Yeah, we
or
want to
chat,
know. What do you guys think? Do you think, one, should he have been indicted? Two,
I think that was easy. No.
well, you're going to have both sides. You got to remember, it's not just the right that watches this. The left might be ready to attack. We might get those bot people coming at us. Please comment if you are, because the more comments you get, the further the video
I don't know
goes.
what you're drinking. Mine is straight Coke.
But I know how they work behind the scenes. There's
Right,
no
what was
such
it?
thing as bad press, Bill.
All right, we'll give you that one. Okay. Anyway,
But yeah, comment, because I'd like to hear it. And by the way, if you're watching, like and subscribe. But as a side note,
and make sure your friends do too.
yeah. But comment, let us know what you think. What do you think is the long-term implications? Do you think it does affect the election? Do you think we're all full of hot air? Do you think...
I wanted to point out.
Do you think that my eye for an eye theory should be put into place? I would like to hear people's opinion on that, because I know it's pretty extreme. And by the way, I'm not talking violence, okay? I better specify
Yeah, but I
that.
think before
I'm
we
talking,
get banned on somebody again.
Bubba, who flew to Little Epstein's Island and, had this little intern in the office. Indict his ass for that.
What I would really like to see is, now that you bring it up, I'd like to see the list of Epstein's Carter people.
I got one. Arkansas. When he was governor, he was accused of...
raping several people.
Well, you can't use you have to say R-ing. It's not, you're not...
R-ing?
Yes, you can't use that word, Bill. Seriously, you can't. You'll get flagged for that. I'm not kidding.
R-ing.
Yeah, because we don't know what that means. Yeah, you can't say, you have
Can
to
you
say
use
S.
effing?
You have to use S-A.
How about effing?
Effing is fine, but you can't say S-A. Has to be used. I'm not joking. He's an old man. He doesn't know this stuff. I'm not joking. You can't use the R word. The bots will flag it. But anyway, set that aside. But that would fall under Arkansas jurisdiction, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but the term limits are probably
Term
out on
limits are apply on Trump too. They're already talking about that.
But no, those
not
are
the
federal.
term limits.
The federal.
Not term limits. What's the word? Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations.
There was Dershowitz was talking about that. Alan Dershowitz.
But that was for federal. But the state's a different order.
Actually, one thing I saw he was talking about at the state. It's way past. So
Okay, well that's possible.
And he said it's going to get tossed just on that. So again, he's a legal scholar. I'm not.
But
so.
do you know what that's going to be then? He got out on a technicality, and not guilty does not mean innocent. Those are the next two lines you're going to hear.
As our illustrious former Speaker of the House said, I'm trying to be kind here, he can still prove his innocence.
That's true. And he can do it from jail, according to them.
Sit in jail like the January 6 people are.
Yes, and they're allowed to. By the way, you know that our friend actually got out on a halfway house? Hornman.
I did not hear that.
He was put out for 14 months into a halfway house to start getting back into the community.
I wonder why that happened.
Maybe because Tucker had something to do with it.
Maybe because
his lawyers got copies of the real stuff that happened.
Yeah, maybe because his lawyer's going to fry them.
Or maybe he's going to be a rich man too.
Or what was that term? Judicial inappropriation or something like
Misconduct.
that? Misconduct, whatever. Oh, he's got a case. He's going to be a millionaire in the long run.
Probably so.
Now, mind you, he is guilty of trespassing.
No argument.
That's not what they're going after.
But I don't know if he's guilty of trespass if you're being walked around by somebody.
I think they could make. I agree with you, by the way, but I think they're trying to make a case that way. But yeah, it's.
But he's now been moved to a halfway house to get moved.
But he's
circled back to government.
Also served his purpose, right? He was the poster child for January 6th,
and he lost.
But look at the election. Who holds the Senate?
We don't want to go there because I'll tell you why that happened one day, and that will not be a pleasant discussion.
There's a lot of people that went, "Oh, January 6th, no, I can't vote against the Democratic senator because they're going to protect us.
By the way,
Useful idiots, Bill.
I just want you to know in 2024, there will be 23 Democrat senators up against 6 Republicans defending their positions in this next run. So
Let's hope.
even if we pull 20% more than we had, we're in good shape.
Don't count your chickens, Bill.
That's true. If we can elect Fetterman,
Look,
we can elect anybody.
I was just going to bring him up, not to mention the dead person that won in Philadelphia.
That's true.
All right. There are too many useful idiots out there. Keep in mind, most people don't read the story, they read the headline. Trump is indicted. That's the headline.
And in their mind, that means he's guilty.
And that means he's guilty. And as we talked about before, you can indict a ham sandwich. There's no proof needed, really.
No. And you don't even need 100%. It's what? Simple majority?
Preponderance of evidence, first of all.
19 to 23 people, a simple majority.
Yeah. So, but again, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. They've gotten what they wanted already.
And they only hear one side of it.
But again, talk about the January 6th. They made him the poster child. It got him the last election. That not completely, but that was part of it, and we have to acknowledge that.
That's fair. I'll give you that one.
They're masters, Bill. They are masters. They're evil, but they are masters. And when it comes down to psyops,
no, and I'll give you, they may be masters, but the party itself did a lot of taking out 8-inch guns and blowing their feet off.
or the 16-inch ones on the Carolina.
Yeah,
not too far from us.
They were.
Yeah, there was some bad.
When McConnell and crew divvied out money to who they liked and didn't like it, and they ended up having people lose that should have won.
I got 2 words for you. Dr. Oz, really? All right, 3 words.
Mickey Mouse should have beat Fetterman.
The sponge on my sink should have been Fetterman.
Oh, you like SpongeBob?
And again, it speaks to. I'm sorry, I give credit where credit's due. They got someone who.
It was a perfect combination of a very skillfully maneuvered election for the Democrats, followed by
ineptitude.
Ineptitude in the Republican side. Thank you. In certain areas, they were absolutely inept.
And as you remember, last summer, I said, watch.
Yep. Seems to me, when we had that conversation, you were predicting 30 or 40. I was predicting 1 or 2.
I did, well, in the House. I actually thought that the House would be a much bigger win. But the Senate.
Yeah, we always had a concern in
the Senate, I was like, and that's where they were targeting. They knew they were going to lose the House. And let's give credit on that, too. They should have lost by 40 seats. They lost by, 5 in the end?
Maybe.
5-ish. That's a win. It's not a win, but it's a win.
It makes life a little bit simpler the next time around.
And the other side of that is, you talk about like conspiracy theories. Maybe that's what they wanted, because now the House is Republican and the economy's crap, and you don't think they're not going to drive that lesson home? See, you voted for a Republican House. Look at what the economy is.
I think we should now take a little break, and then go back into something called This and That, because there's a lot of little things we could throw in.
All right, let's do it.
And come back and discuss someone. I've got a couple of little things in the statewide. You've got this powerlifting issue that you have.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
So we'll be back in a few seconds.
It's not an issue.
Hang in there.
It's fun. Yeah, see you in a minute.
Welcome back, everybody, to another version, which is different than another meeting or episode, because this is the one we're going to talk about this and that. Anything that pops into our mind.
What'd you call it? This and cat?
Or this and that cat.
Henry, show him who's boss.
Look.
There's going to be a little bubble. It's going to go. Shoop.
You better be quiet. I cut it off. You have to go to a retail shop.
You already used that line. You got
to get a new one.
You need some new stuff. So anyway, what are we talking?
Let's start out with powerlifting. I know you were out to try about that.
I thought we were saving that one.
No, we'll go back with that.
For those that don't know, we talked a couple weeks ago about how do I put this politely? Men competing as women by identifying as women and competing in women's sports. So there was a gentleman, and I should pull his name up on my phone, but I won't, who recently in Canada competed in a meet, signed up, and said, I choose to identify as a woman, and was allowed to compete. And not only won, but the now Canadian record for females, I think it's 86 kilograms and up, which is about 180 pounds. He now holds the record for Canadian women. And he will be the first to tell you, I'm not a woman. He's got a beard and everything.
But he
But
identified as
he,
a woman.
for the purposes of the meet, identified as a woman. And it was allowed, and he was perfectly able to compete. And oh, by the way, and I know this shocked you when I told you about it earlier, the record that he beat was held by a trans woman. So not only did he break that record, but there isn't a woman on the planet that can match him. Now, mind you, he held back because I know he can lift a hell of a lot more than he did. I think it was like 270. He can lift a hell of a lot more than that. He did it to make a point, right?
Did anybody? Well, somebody might have heard it because I don't know if you heard this week. The World, not wrestling, but lifting group has banned women, men who act as women.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason he was doing this, right? He wasn't doing it to be mean. He was doing it to make a point, right? Now, technically, I can lift that much, so I'm going to go do 271, just so I can hold the Canadian women's record. There's nothing to stop me from doing it. I mean, have we not reached a point of utter absurdity?
Worse than that, have we not gone out to destroy the women's sport we
That's
spent
my point.
decades
Yeah.
building?
You know, and I was funny because having seen that news article, and, you know, again, we talked about social media. I like to go on social media and see about it. Probably 90% of the people are appalled. The 10%, useful idiots as I call them, are appalled the other way. They think it should be celebrated. They think this is fantastic because, you know, this allows men who've chosen to be, or trans and are going to become women, to have a place to compete. It's only fair. They cannot make that leap of logic that who is really being harmed by this? Women. Title IX has been shredded.
And women's sports set back 100 years.
1,000. So one of the things that they were talking about that I saw online, and I don't want to get too deep into it because most people won't care, but basically they were talking about certain records that, like this, that are falling. So, for example, there was a running record that the best, actual woman's world record is what men could do in the 70s. So women are roughly 40 to 50 years behind men. And that actually holds true if you look at various things. So it'll be 50 years, roughly, before a woman could lift what this guy lifted, theoretically. That's a stretch, but you get my point with it, right?
Yeah, just I'm not sure that validity to that. Because
I
you know,
do. Sports-wise, I do.
You know, the reality is men and women are built differently. They have
Well, that's the
centers
reason.
of gravities are different.
Right. But you look at like
And
the
I don't know
4-minute
whether
mile.
50 years makes a difference.
It does, because like look at the 4-minute mile, right?
And if you're talking about bodies are generally becoming bigger, quicker,
That's exactly what the
you know,
point is,
the
yeah.
medicines out there, the equipment they run with.
We're
you know,
taller, we're stronger, there's better science to support it.
and there's better starting. I mean, years ago when they did races, they didn't have the things for your feet to put against them to
Right.
take off and
Right.
swim in.
So it's
and the pants you could wear swimming
but
that now
even
cut time off your run.
factoring all that in, when you look at it, women are getting stronger, but it'll be 50 years before someone can lift that. You think men aren't going to be stronger by then? Of course they are. There's no chance for a woman now. And, you know, again, that 10% of crazies can't understand that. And they view the rest of the world as hating. You're just full of hate. You're full of rage and hate. That's all they say. You hate trans women. No, we're just being logical here. We support women. So my argument back to them, and this really gets them mad, Bill, is go, no, I support women. And they course, then I won't repeat the names they called me.
And we
Which,
won't go
by
there.
the way, I wear with a proud badge of honor because it's completely unfair to women to expect that. Now, again, we talked about this in prior show, and I don't want to belabor it too much, but do someone who's trans should they have an opportunity to compete? Yes, they should. Not in the women's division. Create a separate division. That's my answer.
That's an interesting theory.
Whether you agree or disagree, that's fine, but that's my answer.
But do you need 57 varieties?
I think we're up to 112 genders now.
Last thing I heard was
can't keep straight,
57.
But,
so
you
you can't play that one too
again,
well.
I don't think they should be excluded at all from competing. They should have their own division. Much like there should be a men's division, there should be a women's division. Or the other alternative is there's no divisions. You compete as a human being. Whoever wins, wins.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that because you can go into, for example, they now have senior divisions for older people to compete.
That shouldn't be allowed.
Oh, really?
Why?
Because of the
Are
reality.
you saying senior people aren't capable?
Yes.
I'm picking on you.
Okay, good.
You got my point, though,
Yeah,
right?
but-
Absolutely, you're right.
Now I'm going to take it in a different direction on this and that.
All right.
I want to congratulate the General Assembly this
Oh, I
week.
thought he was going to congratulate me.
Yeah, but this is not a fiction show. We're talking here about real events that really happened.
The General Assembly of,
North Carolina.
okay.
They overrode their
Oh,
first
let's
veto.
talk about that. Yes.
Yes, did you like that?
I didn't think we were going to get time for that this week.
That was
Did I
worth
like it?
discussing.
No, I loved it.
For those that don't know it, we were one short vote in the General Assembly House part of it to stop an override of the governor's veto, and we finally got a number of Democrats, at least one, to cross over with us,
There were also 3 that chose not to vote.
which is just as good.
Which
Changes the percentages.
it gave the quorum or whatever they needed, but it's chicken shit. I don't want to vote. I don't want to be held accountable because probably I didn't look it up, but they were probably in a county that maybe it could go either way. So I'll just, I had a meeting that day. I couldn't make it to vote.
I don't even know if
Chicken.
it's that, because if you heard what happened afterwards, the Democratic leadership has now threatened anybody who either didn't vote or voted the Republicans, they will be primaried.
Yep. But, again, it gives them the ability to go, I had a medical procedure, or I don't know what that was.
The best point, though, is that they've had their first override, and that's always the hardest.
You know what's interesting about that, though, is you see the reaction, right? My representative, one Deborah Butler, I have no respect for whatsoever, so I will put that out there as a disclaimer, chose to use what happened in Tennessee to argue against the bill. This is going to happen all across North Carolina now. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially the result of this bill is what happened in Tennessee is going to happen all across North Carolina now.
Well, except North Carolina has now passed a bill that if it tries, they're getting additional punishment.
Well, I mean,
which works for me.
But you think about this. One, all it did was take away a redundant check.
Right, basically in the hands of certain sheriffs that were taking advantage of the situation.
Right. So nothing's changed. You still have to have a background check.
Right.
Nothing has changed on
It just it stopped sheriffs being able to delay it for a year just for the sake of they
Correct.
wanted to.
So, I have a permit. I'm a concealed carry holder, so I don't need to go through all that because once you have your concealed carry, you're good. But we had to go through all those background checks. I know you as well. You've got to be fingerprinted, all of that stuff.
And I just did the renewal.
Nothing has changed with that.
No,
The override's already happened. It's now law.
that's true.
Nothing changed between, I don't know, was it Tuesday, I think it was? Tuesday and Wednesday. Nothing changed.
But you'd think the world changed.
But Ms. Butler, and I'm being kind, is out there telling everyone, oh, it's drastically changed. Now people who shouldn't be able to get guns are going to get them.
Well, the Democrats are playing the same song the Brits played when they surrendered in the American Revolution. The world turned upside down. And that's unfortunately the truth.
But that kind of actually really pissed me off that she did that because she's taking a tragedy.
Yeah, but let's go there now. Do this and that.
I'm trying to make a nice little
Segue?
segue. Yes. Did you like how I did that?
It was very, very
It was supposed to be
professional.
subtle, Bill, but now you ruined it.
Okay, well, About subtle as a moose in
You,
heat.
I was going to say you have the subtlety of a moose in a China, a bull in a China shop. That's what I'm trying to think of.
I prefer moose in heat.
Oh, dear God. The things
There
he
goes
can
another
go-
band.
And yeah. See where your mind is today. Do tell.
Oh, the different worlds we have. When in January 6th, when you take over the floor of the legislature in Washington D.C., literally hundreds of people go to jail forever. In Tennessee, when you invade and you take over the floor of the legislature, nothing happens.
It's peaceful protesting, Bill.
That's right.
It's mostly peaceful protesting. Just like when you burn buildings and cities down. It's peaceful protesting. But let's talk a little bit about
And
that.
that was a transgender operation.
Well, let's talk about that tragedy. So, what I'm seeing as the big issue that's being made is not what happened, not mental illness, which is where it really should be. And I'm not referring to the transgender. I'm talking about anyone who would walk into a school and do that. There is something wrong with them mentally. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're man, woman, or cat. All right? No sane person is going to do that. Setting that aside, they have made it into a transgender issue.
Yes, they have.
And their issue is that the media is fawning over themselves and fretting because, oh, I think we misgendered the person that shot. Are you kidding me? They're trying to create sympathy for the shooter. Are you kidding me?
I think it ended up being a woman trying to become a male.
Other way around.
Really? I think I heard it
Something
differently.
like that. Well, Ashley is her, or whatever it is her name. Yeah.
I told,
but
like I said, a woman
whatever.
becoming a male.
But basically, they're turning it into a fight for transgender rights. They're trying to make a hero out of a school shooter.
Yeah, who killed 3 kids, 9 years of age, and 3
Unbelievable.
adults.
I mean, we talk about crossing a Rubicon and a line. Are you kidding me? Can we not just condemn this person? I don't care what gender, sex.
And it was the gun's fault, by the way.
Well, yeah. So it's funny because my wife, when we saw the story, said to me, because she is not political, she's not a gun nut or any of that. She has her concealed carry. She knows what to do. But she said, well, how is that an assault gun? What is the difference? She genuinely was asking because she didn't know. And I said, that particular gun is no different than the one sitting across the room in our gun safe. I have a rifle that is a semi-automatic. You pull the trigger, it shoots one shot. It doesn't look as scary, but it is the exact same rifle, just in a different form.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
It's no different than a pistol, basically. It just goes further.
It essentially is. But, you take off the pistol grip and you put a regular, stock on a rifle, that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an assault rifle.
No.
And I had to explain that to her. Now, mind you, she's pro-gun, but she's not, you wouldn't consider her a gun nut like, say, me, because I've been labeled that many times.
I was always wondering about the adjective gun. The nut I worked with. But
It's not a gun anyway, it's a rifle.
you know the Marine story with that one. We'll do that one day off air.
Yeah. Let's keep it a family operation. But, and I trying to teach her that. She goes, well, then I don't understand. What is their argument? So here's a person who is in the middle, right? Doesn't follow politics, has no political agenda, seeing the absurdity of their argument. And, I actually saw on the news, I forget which politician it was, saying we got to ban assault rifles like the AK-47. And I sat there, and Lori's like, wait a minute, you can own an AK-47? No, you can't. Well, you can. It's a $50,000 licensing application, and God knows how many background checks on that. But the odds of you getting one, it had to be made before, I think it was 1986 when that law got passed. Assault weapons have been banned for 40 years. Funny how they don't talk about that. You can legally own a 50 caliber machine gun.
Yes, you can.
You just have to go through all the checks.
You can own a tank.
You can own a tank. Actually, it's easier to own a tank than a machine gun, I heard.
Yeah, but you got to. There's certain
The
things
gun
about.
has to be disabled. And all
Yeah, you
that.
like stuffing the main tube so nothing's coming
Yeah,
out of it.
but-
losing the 50 cal and the 7.62
But you can own a tank.
and the grease gun. That, by the way, have you ever fired a grease gun?
Perhaps.
You didn't know what a grease gun
No,
is.
I know what a grease gun is. I'm going to say perhaps.
What is a grease gun?
The little, they used them in World War II.
And what's the caliber?
I believe it was 45.
You're right. You actually got that one. I'll give you credit for that one.
Because my
They were the basic
My
tool of a
uncle had
tanker.
one.
They were the basic tank. That's right. Everybody had a grease gun.
Yeah, my uncle had one. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it. He has since passed on. I don't know where it is. I think it got lost out in the ocean. I honestly don't know where it is, but he brought his home.
A lot of things came home in World War II.
I don't know the full story of how he got it home, but I fired it back when I was, 8 years old. Back when, and you'll like this story. So, where our studio was in upstate New York was along a stretch of road, and not 100 yards from where our studio was, we used to shoot on the side of the road into sand dunes, like Saturdays. Like people would show up and just shoot. Can you imagine? And the cops, by the way, would come shoot with us. Can you imagine pulling off to the side of the road and just setting up a range and shooting right now? What would happen? A little different way society is now than then. And oh, by the way, there weren't all these killings back then.
No, there weren't.
Kind of like I remember kids, I never did it, but kids would have shotguns in the rack on their pickup truck.
When I first took over in Edenton, North Carolina, which was 2005, the high school, that was the year they told the kids to take the shotguns out of the back of their trucks. So up to that point, they were all parked in the back of their trucks. They're hanging right there.
Bill?
Mass shootings changed.
What? Yeah, but again, it speaks to mental illness.
Oh, yeah, because how many years would you say we've had mass shootings? 30,
The
40?
general consensus is Columbine was the first one, so 98, 99, somewhere in there.
30. So
20, 30 years, somewhere in there.
We've had guns since actually
Exactly.
the very beginning, 1776.
And they still will not address the issue. Mental illness is the primary cause of this. And I have postulated, I don't think I've ever had this discussion with you, but part of my thing is it goes back to the way boys are treated in school. And they get angry. They feel like they're no longer human beings because that's what they're told. They're evil. Boys are told these days from the time they are
and stop
born.
being what's traditionally known as a male.
Exactly. And if you actually look at that whole timeline, it fits pretty close. Is that the entire reason? Because I actually talked with a psychologist about 2 weeks ago about that, and I postulated that. And she goes, you have a point. I don't think that's the only reason. And I said, I'm not trying to say it's the only reason. I think it's part of the reason. When you, and you know as I do, when you tell someone, they go into school at, pre-K now is what, 3 to 4 years old they're in. Yeah. They're told from that point forward. Now they're having in classrooms boys stand up and apologize for being boys to the girls. When you do that, you are creating a nightmare scenario. How are boys supposed to think sensibly? I'm trying to put it nicely. When you other someone to that point,
there
of
is
course
a
they're going to be
reality
raged.
of a difference between male and female at all genders, at all ages.
Absolutely there is.
And there's certain...
And there should be, by the way.
And I'm not arguing.
Celebrated.
If you go to schools, and again, there's always an exception to a rule. So let's start saying
let's look at the general.
But
not
if
the
you
exceptions.
generally look at boys and girls in schools, girls are more apt to be sitting there listening and doing what you want. Mm-hmm. Boys are more apt to be roaming around where they can. The eyes are fidgeting. They're doing whatever because they need to be moving and active. Again, there are exceptions.
There's always exceptions, but we focus on the exceptions, not the general.
Right, and we tend to bring people back and say we all have to be the same. And I've said this before, we need to stop working for equal outcomes and just make sure we work on equal access.
Equal opportunity.
Well, that's the same difference.
Oh, actually, Bernie came out and said he supports equal opportunity now because he got slammed on a talk show. I don't want to divest from our conversation. But, when you look at, because I've started doing some analysis of why these things are happening. And two things glaringly are showing up. One, mental illness. A lot of them have either been drugged or are being treated. Guess what the second one is?
I'm waiting.
The overwhelming majority of them come from single mother homes.
That I didn't know.
Most people don't. Now, they all are.
Does not mean all single. No, obviously.
No.
Obviously not.
But
there's
it's somewhere. I've heard various ranges, but I'll just kind of narrow it down. It's somewhere around 80%.
Well, I would just like, you can't say that in education that all kids who come from single parent homes are going to be disadvantaged.
No, you
but in
can't.
reality, some do make it. Ben Carson's an excellent example.
But there
are unfortunately
but the plethora
more on the
of
other
them,
side
right.
than there are Ben Carson's.
And of course, now the argument against that, well, we see the fathers abandon them, right? No, they haven't. 80% of divorces are filed by women. Guess what the number one reason is? I'm going to blow his mind. Do you know what it is?
No.
What do you think it would be? Take a guess.
Oh, I would pick one of two things, either being physically abused
Nope.
or in a lack of support financially.
Bingo. He lost his job. Triggers more divorce filings than anything else because he's not a provider anymore. So it is not fathers abandoning their children. A lot of people will throw out cheating as another one. Cheating is not it. Abuse it's horrific. I'm actually an expert on that. We're not going to go there. It's not the cause. He's not a provider. He's not meeting her needs is the other way they'll put it. So, you look at it as, well, these kids are being raised. The standard custody order across the United States is they see their father for 4 days a month and 4 hours on top of that. So every other weekend and one night per week we call it the pizza time, right? So in essence, you're talking 96 and 16. What's that? 112 hours out of a month. A week's 168. Right. So even in the best of circumstances, you could be the perfect father. You still are not going to have that kind of influence. And what do men teach children, I feel? They teach them how to act with others far more.
They teach boundaries.
That's a great way to put it, right? They teach boundaries. And that's why I say what I say. Is it the be-all, end-all? No.
And again, there are exceptions,
There
and we
are
always acknowledge exceptions.
I could name probably 20 of them myself. But there is the crux of the problem. We can't even have that discussion. I get screamed at for even bringing it up. Right?
Well, I'll tell you, if you want to go back historically, go back to the 60s when the government made a move on the black families and forced the men out.
How much time we got? I could do 8
2
hours.
minutes.
I got 8 hours on that one alone.
But that's a reality. We destroyed the black families by forcing the fathers out of the houses.
And don't think it wasn't planned, but that's another show. But that's my point is, am I 100% right? No, I'm not. I would be the first to tell you. But can we at least have the discussion? Instead of saying, it's the gun. I'm sorry. And I get vilified for even bringing that up. You can't talk about that. Oh my God, what are you saying? And I get savaged. And I sit there and go, tell me how I'm wrong.
Well, beyond that, none of us will clam up on that.
As you can tell, I get very
there.
passionate about it because we're not addressing the problem. This is a horrific situation. Instead, we're
treating the symptoms.
We're treating the symptoms, and we're creating hyperbole for political gain, a.k.a. Deborah Butler.
Boy, did that circle come around. I'm telling you, that was a perfect circle.
I just spent 10 minutes ranting just to get that one line in.
And you did. And I have to give you credit for that circle. I wasn't expecting that finish.
It's almost like I should be a politician.
You should be something. We'll work on that.
I'd be the last person you want because I'd be too damn honest.
Oh, I don't know.
I'd make Trump look like a choir boy because I would be. I would call it as I see it. And I really would. I would, and I have. I've called Republicans out all the time. You know I do.
You think?
A little bit, right?
We've had a few discussions over the years.
But you and I can have it as a discussion. That's what sets it apart. You may not agree with me, but you listen, right? Or vice versa.
And sometimes you're right.
And sometimes I'm right. That 1% I'm wrong, okay. that's been lost.
The 1%, I agree.
Yeah, well, yeah. Anyway, where are we moving on to? You got any more cat things?
I think it's no. I think it's
Missing
time
cat?
for a catnip.
Cat nap.
Nip nap.
Nip nap. She's telling our
It's
producer's
time to,
like,
it's
shut
time
up,
to
guys.
wrap it up.
That's the shut it up, guys.
Either that or there's a tornado coming and we don't know it. There's one
Well.
of a couple of choices.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, we're going to shut down this segment of Reclaiming America and hope you've had a good time. We did. And again, like us, follow us, join
king.
us. And the king of the operation is
Hey.
Henry.
Forget us. If you like Henry, how can you not get Henry a like? Give him a thumbs up. Just
And
because he's Henry.
And remember, 10,000 likes. And we bring Greta out of the closet over here.
I'm staying out of that one. I got in enough trouble last time. I'm still haven't got a lot of detention yet. So don't do it for Bill and I. Don't do it for the show. Do it for Henry. 'Cause,
Yes.
I mean, come on, look at that.
I mean-
is he not the most perfect cat? And he's not mine.
And the well-behaved, I'm telling you.
He's in charge of the show.
He is. And he's done now. If show
He's
must
had
be
enough.
over.
Close it up, Bill.
Close is over. Thank you,
All
people.
right.